Reddit. What single human has done the most damage to the progression of humanity in the history of mankind? Guy de Chauliac. He was a surgeon in the 1300s who vehemently spoke out against another fellow surgeon, Theodoric Borgognoni. Theodoric was a surgeon who wrote about his theories on proper wound care and believed that the best thing you can do to a wound is wrap it and keep it clean. Guy hated what Theodoric was writing because it directly went against the teachings of Galen, an ancient Greek surgeon who believed pus was the body's way of balancing your humors. Guy's teachings were widely accepted, and it's believed that his ignorance set the development of antisepsis in surgery back about 600 years. Edit. Guy de Chauliac was born in the 1300s, not 1200s, as he was alive during the Black Death. Ignace Semmelweis was the guy who was thrown into a mental asylum for saying surgeons should wash their hands between seeing patients. Thomas Midgley Jr. He played a major role in development of tetraethylene, leaded gasoline, which went into mass production throughout the 1920s. This invention meant that the blood lead content in developing children rose, causing numerous problems, including cognitive issues and physical growth. It was also noticed that the rise in blood lead content matched with violence in adolescence in multiple countries. Midgley is also accountable for the discovery of chlorofluorocarbons, CFC, specifically freon, which, as many know, had a drastic impact on the ozone. As of October 2020, the ozone hole above Antarctica sits approximately 23 million square kilometers (8.9 million miles). Although these two inventions seem insignificant compared to more drastic actions taken by other single humans, it's the widespread impacts that his inventions had and are still being felt today. Even though both leaded gasoline and CFCs have been banned. P.S. The last invention made by Midgley actually killed him. It was to help him maneuver and get out of bed with the use of ropes and pulleys due to him contracting polio, but he got stuck and eventually his invention strangled himself. Purportedly, the unnamed inventor of flexible glass, vitrum flexile, brought a drinking bowl made of the material before Tiberius Caesar. The bowl was put through a test to break it, but it merely dented, rather than shattering. The inventor repaired the bowl easily with a small hammer, according to Petronius. After the inventor swore that he was the only man alive who knew the manufacturing technique, Tiberius had the man executed. He feared that the glass would devalue gold and silver, since the material might be more valuable. Link in description. I would suggest Andrew Wakefield. His work Ileolymphoid nodular hyperplasia, nonspecific colitis, and pervasive developmental disorder in children has been directly responsible for the mistrust of vaccines, the decline of Western rates of vaccination, and basically telling everybody that there's a boogeyman underneath your bed. He is directly responsible for thousands and thousands of deaths. He's a scientist who made a mistake. Why are you blaming him? It's not that he made a mistake. He had purposely customized the outcomes to meet the hypothesis so that he could get rich selling safe vaccines and diagnostic kits. He poisoned the well that saved so many people just so he could get rich. I have no idea how he can sleep at night. Yongle, emperor of the Ming dynasty in China, ordered the fleet of Zhenghe, the greatest trading and exploration fleet of the time, to be burned during his reign in the early 1400s. This was the beginning of an era of isolation for Chinese kingdoms, which ultimately led to the collapse of Imperial China, and indirectly to the rise of the PRC. Additionally, the wealth of the world overall decreased as a result of reduced trade with China, and if China had continued exploring, it is possible that they, not Europeans, would have colonized North America, instead of merely maybe discovering it then telling no one as they did in history. It may not be a significant alteration of human progress, but it's one of those events that sets the world in a definitively different direction. Edit. Didn't say the Chinese did discover America, just that they might have, because it's been theorized that they did and they had the technology. I mean, the Inuit and Siberians have been crossing the Bering Sea in leather kayaks for thousands of years, so the Chinese definitely could have done it too if they wandered up that far. I don't know much about the actual history of that theory, and most of my comments on that are from Wikipedia searches this morning and willingness to believe fun hidden history scenarios that are actually possible. As a caveat, it would have hugely changed naval history too. It would be accurate to say that Europeans and their methods of sailing enabled European-led globalization and colonization. The durability of their designs, relative speed, and range were critical developments with a measurable impact on the world. But, really the Chinese had a totally different system which would have really worked just as well, if not better. European ships were relatively small and had canvas sails, while the great Chinese ships that Zheng He used were massive, and used these kind of folding bamboo sails, ingenious for their strength and manageability. They even had watertight compartments, something European ships didn't even consider using for centuries. Both parts of the world produced ships that could do what the other kind did, while looking extremely different. So as a maritime history buff, I'm totally fascinated by how things on the high seas would have looked had the Yongle Emperor not stifled Chinese naval expansion in the cradle. Edit. Book recommendations are, anything by Brian Lavery and Robert Gardner. Bhakti-Yar Khilji. Hands down. In 12th century there was the world's biggest university in India named Nalanda where intellectuals from all around the world used to study. Then Turks invaded India under Khilji. They killed almost all the intellectuals and destroyed the university. And they burnt the library. The library continued to burn for 3 months. This has to be by far the biggest loss to mankind IMO. Same as Sunny Ali. Songhai King who couldn't read or write and this inferiority complex led him to conquer and burn down Timbuktu and killing all scholars that didn't manage to escape. Sir Mark Sykes. This man was the British element in the Sykes-Picot Agreement. For those of you not in the know, 100 years ago the Middle East was an area that did have some nations and some more tribal areas. So people were more divided by language and culture, some by religion. France and Britain decided to carve up the Middle East into easier to govern territories, but fumbled this task and instead divided the territories on the map over these religious and tribal lines. Not only has this been a main contributing cause of conflict in the Middle East, if you take two opposing or rival groups and then suddenly group them as one country. What do you expect? But said conflicts have then fueled further conflicts again and again. This has then been further used by Islamic extremists as a reason to hate the Western powers, as they were the ones who created this terrible agreement. Even Sykes himself accepted that the agreement's wording should be changed in order to give those countries autonomous rule. What is a little sad is he actually seemed to want to help these regions with the agreement, but just bumbled the whole thing, which has led to most of the issues the Middle East has to this day. Sykes didn't make the modern Middle East though, he just played a large part in creating the circumstances in which its current problems thrive. Imagine all of the advancement, education, and collaboration that could have happened had the Middle East been allowed to flourish unhindered and without resentment. Cyril of Alexandria is a pretty good bet, link in description. He organized murder squads to go around Alexandria killing anyone who wasn't a die-hard Christian. This included nearly every great mind of the era. One in particular was Hypatia of Alexandria, one of the greatest minds in history. She invented a working steam engine nearly a millennia before the first steam locomotive. He is of course considered a saint by Catholicism and the Church of England. Edit. It was Hero that invented the steam engine. Chill y'all, I just woke up to 100 damn replies. Her writing did survive, just not intact. Much of it within the treatise of Theon, her father a great astronomer in his own right. Wikipedia is not infallible. Genghis Khan. While he personally didn't do much to hinder human progress, his reign began an era of Mongol expansionism and devastation, and his successors were responsible for the destruction of the House of Wisdom of Baghdad, ending the Islamic Golden Age, and not to mention the destruction of numerous cities and the deaths of many. Also, the Mongol Empire eventually paved the way for the Black Death. The empire led to many trade routes being formed between Europe and Asia, which eventually led to the transmission of the Black Death to Europe in the 14th century. Thank you for watching/hearing. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more forum videos. You may even click the bell. Leave a comment if you want to, and click the next video to get to another video.